Hey guys, it's Natalie, and this week I'm not doing my Gimme 5 or More because I wanted to give you my March wrap-up, and I am super excited. And let me tell you why I'm super excited. I usually read between 6 to 8 books a month. That's kind of my average. And I beat my average. No, I did not read 24 books. When I tell you the amount of books I read, you're not going to faint and fall on the floor. It's probably not going to be that exciting to you, but for me, it was very exciting, and it made me feel a little bit better about these 7 huge books I'm doing for this Owl Magical Readathon. So, drum roll please. For the month of March, I read 10 books! Can you believe it? I can't believe it. But when I went and started writing down all the books that I read this month, and I went, that's 10 books. I read 10 books. Oh my gosh, I read 10 books. I'm so excited. So, I'm going to tell you about the 10 books I read. Oh, let me tell you this. For the month of March, I read 4 mystery thrillers, 2 YA fantasy, 2 contemporary, 1 historical fiction, and 1 graphic novel, which was my first graphic novel that I really enjoyed. So let me do my math again. That was 10. I'm so scared I'm going to come up short. And I'm going to really briefly explain how I rate books, because I think everybody rates books a little bit differently. So this is how I rate books. If I give a book a 5-star, it has to meet certain requirements. To be a 5-star book, 1, I have to be entertained while reading it, of course. I also have to have that looking forward to reading it, meaning when I'm at my last few minutes of work, or I'm driving home from work, or, you know, it's getting, where I put my son to bed, the thought pops in my head, yes, I get to go read, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm so excited. You have that looking forward to it, wanting to get back to it, or you don't want to put it down, where you have to put it down in the evening. It's kind of like, don't want to put it down, but, you know, I have to sleep sometimes. And then also, you have to have that book hangover feeling that after you've read it, you're just like, oh my gosh, that was so good. For a 4-star, I also need to be entertained while reading it. Duh. I also need to have that where I'm looking forward to reading it, and I really kind of am sad when I have to put it down. The only difference between a 4-star book and a 5-star book is with a 4-star book, when I'm done, I'll be like, wow, that was really good. And sometimes when I say, wow, really good, I might be like, ooh, wow, really good. Oh, and it has a sequel. I can't wait for that to come out. But I'm not walking around afterwards kind of in a haze going, wow, that was so beautiful. Oh, wow, and the way the characters came together. Oh, my gosh. So 4-star books are very good, but they just don't give me that kind of hangover. And then we have 3-star books, which I keep saying, for me, a 3-star is not bad. For a 3-star, I am very entertained while I'm reading it, but I'm not really thinking about it when I'm not reading it. Meaning when I'm driving home, it's not a book that's really popping in my head like, oh, I get to get back to it. But it's a book that while I'm reading it, I'm enjoying it. Usually if a book is a 1 or 2-star book, I'm gonna DNF it because life is too short, and I'm a bit older than some of you, and I don't feel like I have all the time in the world to be wasting time reading books that I don't like. So the only time I'm going to have a 1 or 2-star book is if it's a book club book, because I want to read the book so that I can discuss it. So that in those situations, I will push myself to read it. So let me tell you the difference between a 2-star book and a 1-star book. A 2-star book is not necessarily entertaining me, but as I'm reading it, it's holding my attention. You know, I'm okay with reading it, you know, to get through it. A 1-star book is usually where I am forcing myself to read it. Like, this book is, I'm not enjoying reading it. I am forcing myself because I want to be part of the book club discussion, but this is almost bordering on torture having to read this. So those are how I rate books. Some people rate books differently, but if you want to know how I rate them, that's how I rate them. I'm going to do these, like I said, maybe I didn't say, in the order I read them, so you won't know what's coming. It might be a 5-star, then a 2-star, then a 3-star, then you don't know. But that's what's so fun about this channel. It's full of surprises, sort of, kind of. All right, let's get on with it. The first book I read was the Hazelwood. I did this in, I think, my very first book haul. I was told it was about a girl and her mother who were kind of always on the move because of bad luck, and the grandmother was a famous author for writing fairy tales, and the grandmother passes away, and the mother disappears, and the daughter finds out the fairy tales weren't really fairy tales, or they were fairy tales, but they were true fairy tales. And that's what I knew, and I thought, gosh, that sounds so darn amazing. And so I started reading it. So nervous, but I loved it. It was so good. It met all my expectations and it got 5 stars. So that was really, really great. To tell you just a little bit more, what I just told you is absolutely true. Main character is a 17-year-old girl named Alice, and all of those things happen, and her mother disappears, and she has a friend named Finch who loves the fairy tales, so he's really in the know about these fairy tales, and he's helping her to figure out what is going on. And I think what I really loved about this book is it really was almost dreamlike. It very much, when it was describing certain things, it really stretched my imagination. Like I felt like someone, in some cases, it was like someone was describing a dream. The visual details were just amazing. The characters were amazing. The plot, just everything was really, really good. So to start off and have the first book be a 5-star, I was like, oh, that is so exciting. My first book was a 5-star. So I highly recommend this book. And it's not a super long read. And for me, it was a really, really fun read. So check it out if you can. I really enjoyed it. The second book I read was a mystery thriller. If I didn't say before, the Hazelwood was a YA fantasy. That probably was obvious when I said a 17-year-old and was mentioning fairy tales, but if you didn't pick up on that, this was a YA fantasy. Oh, and the author was Melissa Albert. So after that, well, I read 3 books at a time. So while I was reading that, I also was reading Still Mine by Amy Stewart. This was a mystery thriller, like I said. I gave this one 3 stars, which means when I was reading it, I was very entertained, and I'm glad I read it. The main character is named Claire, and she's on the run, and you pretty much assume it's like from a boyfriend or husband, but somebody has hired her to go into this really small town to investigate the disappearance of this woman. And at first you're not sure why she was hired to do this. The small town, she doesn't go into the town saying, hey, I'm here to investigate your missing woman. No, she goes in and I think pretty much just says, oh no, I'm here because I like to take pictures and your town's really pretty. And she kind of becomes part of the town, and she becomes part of the town's drama, and she gets to know everybody and slowly figures out what's going on and what's happening with this woman, and you find out more about why she's even there and why she was even hired to do this. And while I was reading it, I really enjoyed it. I would definitely pick up another Amy Stewart book. So Still Mine, 3 stars, and 3 stars is what? Not bad. All right, this next book I have been dreading even talking about, not because it was a bad book, not at all. It was, well, let me show you what it is. This is a contemporary book. It was called My Year of Rest and Relaxation. It was for a book club meeting that I ended up not being able to go to. This was a very, different book. It was it's really hard to describe this book. It was very, very different. I don't even know how to rate this book because this book really is not a book to entertain you. It's about a young woman. She's graduated college. She's had horrible things happen to her in her life, and she basically decides that she's going to take a year of rest and relaxation, and she finds a psychiatrist that she can dupe into basically prescribing anything she wants, and all she wants is to be high on pills and sleep all the time. And it's very, very sad. I mean, it wasn't hard to read. I mean, it kept my attention, not because it was entertaining me, but just it was so shocking, the things she would do, the amount of pills she was popping. It was incredibly sad at times, and then at times you just didn't like her because she could be so rude and hateful, but at the same time she had just a horrible background. This book really is supposed to be more of a book to make you think, because we do have a major pill problem in this country. I don't think this is unrealistic that there are people who live like this, who, trick physicians and say, oh yeah, I have these symptoms and these symptoms, when really they're just looking for pills because they want to sleep, because that's what she wants to do. She would like to just sleep all the time. And she has some people that are trying to reach out and care for her. And the only other thing I would like to mention about this book is I would not let anybody under 18 read this book, because this book was more graphic and crass at times than 50 Shades of Grey. I'm not kidding. There were parts where I could not believe, they should have called this book TMI, because the things this narrator was telling you, I was like, oh my gosh, she's telling me things that you don't tell anybody, like things I would not even tell my husband or my best friend, like super private things, gross things that you wouldn't share. She's sharing all of it. But the book does have a very good point. It's a great book, I think, for, I'm so upset I missed the discussion of the state of, where we are. And it's not necessarily has a sad ending. You go on this journey, but it was more of a thought piece. Does that make sense? That's why I don't want to rate it, because I'm rating it on entertainment, and it wasn't entertaining. It was thought-provoking. But no, this is definitely, if you are not good at handling books that tell you way too much information, if you could not handle 50 Shades of Grey, not that this is like a smut book, it's not that. There's just, if you've read it, you're probably going, I know exactly what you're trying to say, and it is hard to put into words what I'm trying to say. Just very, very crass, very TMI with this narrator telling you things. You're like, gross, I did not need to hear that or know that. That is just so disgusting. So yeah, I'm so hitting myself. Yeah. So definitely a thought piece. I'm not going to rate it. I think it was a book that should have been written. It's a book that should be discussed. The topic itself should be discussed because there are people like this, but I'm not going to rate it, but I will definitely say, please, if you see your 15 or 16-year-old, not that I think that they would pick up this book, but this is definitely a book that should have like an NC-17 rating, if you know what I mean. All right, let's move on. All right, the next book, I think, well, no, I can't say it was my favorite book. I had so many great books this month. This was definitely one of my favorite books this month, and that is, and I'm sure you've heard of it, Girls of Paper and Fire. It says James Patterson presents, but I think I've talked to you before. James Patterson mentors a lot of authors, so I think it was mostly written by this Natasha, I don't know how to say this last name, Ngan, but this book from page one had me. I was so interested. I loved the main character. I've seen people review this book and go, I hated the main character. I loved the main character. I really enjoyed the characters in this book. It is a fantasy world where there are three castes. If you're a human, you're in the paper caste, which is the lowest caste you can be on. If you're a demon, then you're in the moon caste. And these demons are very much animal-like demons. They all are described as having animal-like characteristics. And then the middle one is the steel caste. And the steel caste is kind of a cross between a human and a demon. They're not completely human, but they're not completely demon. Like they have a few animal kind of features. But the idea of the story is that there is this king who takes 8 paper girls each year. And these paper girls are basically just kept at the palace. And they're just meant to meet his manly needs. Like I said, I can't say too much because I do have kids sometimes who watch these videos. I don't want to say too much, but I think you know what I'm saying, what these girls are for. And obviously, Lee, I think it's Lee, it's L-E-I. I took it as Lee. I don't know if it was Lay or Lee. I thought it was Lee. Basically gets kidnapped and taken away from her family and brought to this palace. And she has to be this paper girl. Trigger warning, because if you are sensitive to people who are being assaulted in the way, you can probably guess these girls are being assaulted. I definitely want to give you a trigger warning, but that's also why the author wrote this book. She has been a victim of those kinds of assaults and abuse. In fact, in the back, in the acknowledgement, she lists hotlines that you can call if you are having problems with those kinds of assaults or abuse. But the book was so good. It's the first in a trilogy. This sort of reminded me of the Hunger Games a little bit, just because in both cases you have people who are basically being ripped from their families, poor people being ripped from their families, taken, in this case, to the palace. In the Hunger Games, she goes to the capital, but still being taken to the, fancy head of the kingdom or country or whatever. And even though they're going for horrible reasons, in the Hunger Games they're going because they're most likely going to die, and in this case they're going to have to meet the king's needs, which, as a young teenage girl, gross. But at the same time, everyone around them is acting like, you should be so happy and so excited, and they are being able to wear beautiful clothes and eat wonderful food and live the glamorous life just like they did in the Hunger Games. But at the same time, you're going, why should they be happy? This is horrible. This is a horrible situation. So I wonder if anybody else who's read this had that same thing where they were thinking about the Hunger Games, because it really did, where everybody was like, oh, how exciting, you're a paper girl. Like, oh, how exciting, you're going to be in the Hunger Games. It's like, yeah, I'm probably going to die. So really love this. I cannot wait to read the second and third one. I've had good luck and bad luck with trilogies. I hope this turns out to be a good one. So definitely pick this up. I really loved it. Really, really loved it. 5 stars. Okay. Okay, this next book was called Don't Turn Out the Lights by Bernard Minier. I gave this book 4 stars. It was definitely entertaining. This book really was scary. Don't turn out the lights. Yeah, after you read this book, you're not going to want to. The main character is Christine, and she works for a radio, and like Christmas Eve, because she lives in an apartment building, you know, where all your mailboxes are together, she gets this weird note from this woman who makes it sound like she's thinking of killing herself, but she can't imagine who it's from, and she's pretty sure it has nothing to do with her, but it's Christmas Eve, so the only thing she can really think of is she's going to go to all her neighbors in the apartment building going, do you think maybe this was put in my box by accident? Do you think this is somebody you might know? Because, I mean, she does care. I mean, she's not heartless, but she doesn't think it's for her. And, you know, there's hardly anybody home because it's Christmas Eve, and so she goes about her evening. The next day she goes to the police, and she gives them the note, and they reassure her there's been no suicides. And then it just gets crazy because they find that the only they find the only fingerprints on the note are hers. So then the police think that she wrote the note and then brought it to the cops for attention. So the police don't believe anything she says. And now she's being stalked in creepy ways. There's somebody who's getting into her apartment. There's somebody who's calling her and leaving her messages saying, you let her die. There's somebody who's getting into her computer and messing with her career by sending out horrible emails to colleagues that make her look like she's crazy. And it's a pretty long book, and it twists and turns and twists and turns. And just when you think you have it figured out, nope, it's going to go this way. And then you think you got to figure out, nope, it's going this way. So I did really enjoy it, but this was a very dark, creepy mystery thriller. This one, there was a few times that I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I could feel the hair on my arms. I'm like, this is so creepy. But a good creepy. I would definitely read more from this author. So if you like creepy, this is it. I found it for you. The next book I also read for a book club. It's called The Tuscan Child. The author, I don't know, is that Rise Bowen? I'm not sure. This is historical fiction, and I'm not going to tell you too much about it. I am going to tell you it was a 5-star read. That's why I said with Girls of Paper and Fire. I was just about to say Girls of Paper and Fire was my favorite book, but then I remembered this book, and I'm like, So those were probably my 2 favorite reads, but I'm not going to get into much of this because I'm making a video just about this one book. That's how good this book is. I will just let you know, like I said, it's historical fiction. It has 2 timelines. One is set during World War II in Tuscany, Italy, and the other timeline is in Britain in the early 1970s. One of the characters is a father, one of the characters is a daughter, and that's all I'm going to say. And if you want to learn more, you better watch the review, and you should. This is a really great book that I think most people will really love, and I can't wait to talk about it in the review I do for it. Right, the next book I read was another mystery thriller. Well, what can I say? You guys know that's my favorite. This was The Safest Lies by Megan Miranda. I think this is probably the 5th book I've read by her. I really, really like Megan Miranda books. In fact, she has a new book coming out, and I wish I could think of it right now on the top of my head, but if you go and watch the Give Me 5 or More mystery thrillers coming soon, the first book I talk about is her new book. So I gave this one 5 stars. Oh, I love this one so much. The main character is named Kelsey, and her mother, and she's 17, so as almost you would think it was a YA, but it really, Megan Miranda just has different age characters. This is labeled mystery thriller. But anyway, Kelsey lives with her mom, and her mom used to be famous for being kidnapped and somebody who escaped her kidnapper, and Kelsey is a result of that kidnapping. And though her mother loves her very much, her mother is so paranoid. They live in a house that has every lock, every kind of alarm, a panic room. I mean, and the woman does not leave the house. She is terrified. I mean, this is a severe case of PTSD. But unfortunately, she does go missing. After she goes missing, all chaos erupts, and Kelsey has to figure out what's going on, and she learns that she doesn't know as much about that kidnapping as she thought she did. Her mother excluded a lot of details. Her character was great. The other characters, her friends in this, were really great. I just really loved this, and I was a little sad when it was over, but I did give it 5 stars because it was great. I do to shout from the rooftops, you have to read this book. It was so good. The next book I read was a contemporary. I read The Proposal, and I'm not going to tell you what I rated it. I'm not going to tell you what I thought of it, because this book is going to be part of my Reese Witherspoon book club review video that's going to be coming up very, very soon, because this was one of her recent book picks. So if you want to see how I felt about this book, you should watch that video. Along with that video, not only will I talk about this book, I will talk about the next book that's in the book club series and what I've heard about it, because that's what I'm going to read next. But definitely keep your eye out for the Reese Witherspoon book club review, where I talk about this and another book, and I really hope you guys enjoy it, because you've enjoyed when I've talked about her book club in the past. So right now, it could be a 1-star, it could be a 5-star, you just don't know. Watch the video. The next book I read was my first graphic novel. It was in my owl crate, I think in February. Yeah, The Tea Dragon Society, and I don't know why I put off reading this for quite a while, because I've never read a graphic novel. I don't know why. I have no reason, or I just haven't read one. So I finally just said, you know what, you got this in your owl crate. It looks really pretty. I mean, the art is gorgeous. It's really short. Give it a try. So I did, and it was so cute. And after reading this, I want my own tea dragon. I won't tell you what it's about, but, well, I will tell you a little bit about what it's about. It's about tea dragons. And tea dragons are kind of like, well, they're dragons, but they're small enough that you can put them in your purse. At least that's what I thought about when I was reading it. I was like, oh, they're so cute. You can put them in their purse. And then they grow something from their horns, some kind of leaves that you can make tea from. And I don't even like tea, but I still want one of these tea dragons. And then after you read the story, it's a precious little story. It has a little, let me find this. It has a little kind of index of the different kinds of dragon. Like there's a jasmine tea dragon if you want jasmine tea. There's chamomile tea dragon if you want some chamomile tea. I think you guys get where I'm going with this. There's a ginseng tea dragon. There's an Earl Grey tea dragon, a peppermint tea dragon, and they're just so cute, and they're little. I mean, they're little. Like, you could put them in your purse. So I was thinking how people put little dogs in their purse. If I had a tea dragon, I wouldn't put it in my little purse. But yeah, very magical story. I'm not going to rate it. I'm going to tell you I really did enjoy it, but I don't feel like I can rate it because I don't have anything to compare it to. I've never read any other graphic novels. I can just say that it was short, but it was a really cute story, and it really kind of opened my eyes to the possibility of reading other graphic novels. I always thought graphic novels were just like comic books, which I guess in some ways they are, but I didn't know they were like fantasy graphic novels. And I see a lot of you guys talk about how much you love them, so I think I'm going to start giving some of them a chance. So the Tea Dragon Society was just, if I could pick one word, I would say this was precious. Just precious. The last book I read is Are You Sleeping? It's a novel by Kathleen Barber. It says, the only thing more dangerous than a lie is the truth. It was a mystery thriller, if you didn't pick up on that. So the main character is Josie, and 13 years ago, her father was murdered. Her mother ran away with a cult, and her and her twin sister became estranged. So presently, she's happy. She lives with her boyfriend, Caleb, and everything is going pretty well. An investigative reporter starts a mega podcast to reopen the case of her father's murder because it's gone unsolved. And she's never told her boyfriend about any of her past because she's tried to distance herself from it. And so obviously when this podcast comes out and all of a sudden this becomes huge news, not only do you have the podcast throughout here, you have sections where you see internet comments with people talking about the podcast, and it's just chaos. It's just complete chaos when this thing drops and all of a sudden she has to deal with it. Oh, okay, I gave this one 4 stars. I was very excited when I was reading it. I was very much looking forward to it. I didn't really get a book hangover from it, so I couldn't give it 5 stars, but it was very, very good, and I do highly recommend it. So now it is time for my booktuber shout out, and today my booktuber shout out, who I actually mentioned before because I did a tag that she tagged me in, is Gaia Athena. I absolutely love her channel. I think she is just a sweetheart. She actually, I did not know this, and this actually surprises me because I have pretty good radar when it comes to this. I did not know that she had autism. And like I said, I've been around people with autism since I was a teenager, and I usually have like an eye for it, like I can pick up on it, and I did not pick up on it. So wow, that was pretty good. But she has such great content, such great sincerity. She puts so much into these videos as far as what the information that she's giving you. And I don't know where she films. Well, I know she films in the Netherlands because that's where she's from, but it's like she's in this winter garden. There's some times when she films, her background is so beautiful. It's like, I almost want to be like, can I come visit you? Do you mind? You know, I'm not trying to scare her, but seriously. So if you have not checked out her channel, you really, really need to. Book Your Imagination did, I think, the booktuber shout out tag recently, and you had to shout out 3 booktubers you think need more attention, and I was watching that last night, and she shouted out Gaia Athena, and she's the one who said, and she's autistic, and I went, she is? Did not even pick up on that. So she is so great. She's really, really wonderful. Please go to her channel. Please subscribe. I think you'll really, really enjoy her. So that's all I have for my March wrap up. My 200 subscriber video should be coming up this weekend. Please watch that because I'm doing a giveaway. I'm giving 2 giveaways. So hopefully you might be one of the winners. But thanks so much for watching and listening to what I read in March. And I've been watching some of your March wrap ups, and I'm going to keep watching them because I watch so much book too. So thanks, guys. I'll see y'all later.